Lane Kiffin is ready to be a head coach again. He spoke to an industry insiders about Kiffin and his job prospects. Adam Rittenberg, I hope you're doing well. Welcome back to Tuscaloosa.
Hey, Ryan, how are you?
Hey, very well, very well. And, you know, anytime we can spend a couple of minutes talking about Lane Kiffin, it's always great for the ratings. And I know it's a really good topic when you look at Lane Kiffin. And I've asked myself many, many times, does he get back into the coaching at a decent job? Sort of dive into this article and sort of how it came about.
Yeah, like you said, he's always a lightning rod. He's a guy who attracts a lot of attention, even though you almost never hear from him. And a lot of my job now is to cover the coaching industry and who could be moving into it and guys that are moving up. And there's certainly a lot of attention on whether Lane can get another job, and most people think he can this cycle. And so it'll be interesting to see where he ends up.
When you talk to people about Lane Kiffin, let's talk about the good here for just a couple of minutes. Obviously, he's got a lot of things that it's going for him. He's been able to take Alabama. He's been able to change and get Nick Saban to be willing to change on that offensive side of the football. But what are the good things that people say about Lane Kiffin?
Yeah, there's certainly. I mean, again, there's nothing for him to prove as an offensive play caller, as a quarterback developer, as somebody who can adjust his scheme to the personnel. You see that this year with Jalen Hurts. And I mean, honestly, he's got a pretty decent record as a head coach. I know it was tumultuous at Tennessee and at USC, but, he has won games at a decent rate, and he's always recruited at a very high level. He didn't sign a recruiting class, at least according to ESPN's rankings, that ranked outside the top 15. So there's definitely some positives. The coaches want, or athletic directors want offense. They want quarterback development. They want recruiting. And Lane checks all those boxes. He's also worked in a lot of different parts of the country, which is helpful. So you're not just locked into a region, and you could really work almost anywhere and recruit almost anywhere. And that's certainly going to be appealing for him, especially the type of job that he's likely to get, which is not going to be a USC level, a Tennessee level type job this time around. But it could still be a good job that could springboard him into something better.
And I know coaches always want to get back into that head coaching spot, but some guys just enjoy being play callers. I mean, they enjoy. Lane Kiffin's able to do what he's able to do because he has plenty of time. He's able to look and expose the defense and go, "Hey, this is the way they attack the defense." When you're a head coach, you got a lot more responsibility. You got to manage the defensive side of the football. With where coordinators are paid now, do you think it's even an option that he stays at Alabama next year?
I think it's time, and nothing against his time there, which I know he's enjoyed, and it's been great for his professional development. These guys want to be head coaches. I mean, really, for the most part, with a few exceptions, you get a John Chavis or guys that have just been coordinators at so many different schools that maybe had the opportunity to be a lower level head coach and decided that they're best suited as coordinators. But I would say, talking to as many coaches as I do, 95% of them want to run their own show. And for Lane, it's really about showing that he can do this. That he can be a successful head coach and a successful CEO, and that he's not just a guy that can run great offense and call a great play and so forth. So this is important for him, and I think he feels like he's ready to go out and do it again and get another chance.
Talking about the coaching industry, when you look at Coach O there at LSU, if he plays Alabama close, even if he wins the game, certainly right now it seems like he's the favorite to get that job. The way the team has been able to turn around, and it seems like the fan base is really behind him there at LSU.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I don't want to give away too much, Ryan, but I'm doing a similar story on Friday about Coach O and the prospects for him. And it's a little bit different, because he is obviously in a job as a head coach, as an interim head coach now for the second time in the last 4 years. He's taking over for Lane Kiffin, ironically, at USC. But he's got what in Power 5 AD just told me was a great job interview this week against Alabama, followed up by games against Arkansas, Florida, and Texas A&M. So you could not ask for a better opportunity to be evaluated. But as he knows, as we all know, he's got to perform in that situation, and it doesn't guarantee him anything. So I think the interesting thing for Ed, he does seem to fit a lot of the things that LSU wants. The way he's turned around this season, it seems, has been encouraging, but the strong finish is key. And then if he doesn't get the LSU job, what other jobs could be possible for him? That's where it's a little bit murky right now talking to people around the industry. But he's certainly done a great job so far in a tough situation at LSU. And wow, if they were to win this week, or at least play Alabama close like they had done for years, and then go on and win their last few games, it would certainly enhance his case to remain the head coach of the Tigers.
Adam, what do you see in this Alabama and LSU game?
Well, I think LSU, both teams are coming in with some momentum. I'm interested to see how Alabama handles its first, real brush with adversity as far as injury goes, with Eddie Jackson unfortunately out for the season. It's obviously a deep group on defense, but how do they react to one of their top playmakers being out? And then with Jalen Hurts, this is probably going to be the best defense that he's gone against so far this season in LSU. A very, very talented group, a group that I know Dave Aranda, talking with Dave, he sees this group growing every week and not having to do too much scheme, that they can keep it simple, relatively simple, and then let their talents go to work. And so, how does he handle this environment, Jalen Hurts? He's been in some tough ones so far, places like Arkansas and Ole Miss, but this is a different animal, as you know, and he's definitely going to be facing more overall talent on defense with LSU than he has to this point in his career.
But on the offensive side of the football, LSU needs balance. You look at Leonard Fournette, you look at their rushing attack, that's okay. But they've got to be able to throw the football a little bit to open up some of those running lanes for Fournette and company.
Without a doubt. And, I think with Eddie Jackson not being out there, I'm interested to see what types of downfield throws they attempt and how many gambles they take early in this game. I mean, LSU in some ways is playing with nothing to lose. I mean, no one really expects them to win. This is an interim staff. They don't know the future for themselves. And so I think LSU will come in loose and take some shots and see if they can make something happen. I mean, they have talent at receiver, and that's been the frustrating thing for LSU fans all these years. Obviously Odell Beckham was there, but even the guys that are starting right now are not, they're not mediocre players. They're talented players. They just maybe haven't been featured in the right system or with the right quarterback so they can maximize their potential. So I would imagine LSU will come out with an aggressive scheme. They're obviously going to run the ball. We know that with Fournette, but I also think they should at least take some shots downfield. I mean, I know when we talked a few weeks ago about what coaches were saying about Alabama's defense, they said, listen, you can't be too conservative. You have to look at your own tendencies, and you have to do basically the opposite of those. So you have to take some chances and be okay with the results, which is obviously a scary thing against a defense that takes the ball away like Alabama does.
Yeah, and Adam, were you the guy that was telling me that coaches in the SEC that were talking about Alabama said, we have enough guys to compete with them 1 through 35 or 1 through 40. It's the other part that we don't have the depth to compete with Alabama. Was that you or was that another analyst? I apologize.
No, it must have been someone else. But, I mean, obviously you've heard that sentiment that, obviously the depth is very difficult because, so many of Alabama's players could be starters. There's only 11 spots on the field. But, they can really, if they were playing for other teams, many of their reserves or even third stringers, especially on last year's defense, but also this year's defense, would be starting and maybe would be starring as starters. So that's certainly a concern for coaches. But I will say with LSU, I've seen Alabama warm up at field level, and I've seen them against other teams, and they look different. LSU is one of those teams where they don't look that different from Alabama. I mean,
right.
Their talent level is right there. There you have a lot of NFL players, future NFL players on their team. They recruit at a nationally elite level. So I think the intimidation factor that maybe sometimes plays into it with Alabama, the belief that you can not only compete but win the game, maybe will be the intimidation factor will be less with LSU, and the belief that they can win should be stronger. And again, I just feel like this is a looser LSU team, certainly than the one that began the season. I saw them against Wisconsin in Green Bay. They looked sluggish. They looked tight. They looked unprepared. But I think now, thanks to Ed Orgeron and some of the talent that's emerging, some of the scheme changes, I see a team that's sort of cutting it loose, which I think is the only chance that you have against a team that's of Alabama's caliber.
Adam, is Tom Herman still the big name out there right now as far as the big head coaches, or has he lost a little bit with some of these losses from Houston, from other teams?
It really depends on who you ask. I mean, I talked to a Power 5 AD the other day that said, is Texas really going to hire a guy who lost to SMU and Navy? And then I talked to a group of 5AD just now who said this guy is the real deal. He is, he deserves all the accolades that he's getting, and that it's tough to keep your team focused when everyone's talking about your next stop. So, there's definitely differing opinions on Tom Herman, but there's more positive than negative. And the other thing, again, Ryan, what everyone's telling me is that who are the other candidates? Who are the candidates that we're not talking about for these big jobs? Is it Jimbo Fisher? Is it a guy like Mike Gundy? Is he ready to move on from Oklahoma State? There's not a bunch of obvious choices for a job like Texas even, or a job like LSU. So I think there's going to be some surprises in this coaching cycle, and I think we're all going to have to be prepared. But it may be a fairly quiet cycle if say only the LSU job and maybe only the Texas job is open of that caliber.
Adam, did you have a problem last night with the college football playoff rankings? Anything bother you as you look at that top 10?
I wasn't a huge fan of A&M over Washington. I get why they did it, and having done the top selection a few weeks ago, I know how important who you beat is, but I also think the fact that Washington is undefeated, and I have a lot of respect for their win against Utah. I think their win against Utah is on the road is just as good as A&M's win over Auburn. I know Auburn's playing really well right now, but Utah's a really good team and a really hard team to beat. The fact that Washington hasn't lost, and I know A&M has a loss. It's a good loss. It's the best loss you could have on the road to Alabama. But in the second half, they weren't overly competitive in that game. I know that Washington has had a couple of scares on the road to Arizona, which is a bad Arizona team. But I really think that right now I would take Washington over A&M on a neutral field. But again, it's early. It's going to sort itself out. It always does. And if Washington can take care of business and win the Pac-12, even with one loss, I like their chances to get into the playoffs.